Bloomfield will be back in a minute. It's 5 o'clock, so I'll open the meeting and advise everyone that we are live streaming this meeting to the community, and I'll acknowledge you before you speak so that people know who's speaking, and request that mobile phones be either turned off or to silent to assist with the meeting. In terms of election members present, everyone is present except for Councillor Coates, who is on a leave of absence. And I'll start with an acknowledgement to country. So in recognition of the history of this place, known as Nipaluna by the Palawa people of Tasmania, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and the Tasmanian Aboriginal community who have survived invasion and dispossession and continue to maintain their identity, culture and rights. Thank you. The minutes of our last meeting of the 19th of February, moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Harvey. Any comments on those minutes? There being none, all those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 3 is the transfer of agenda items. Are there any proposed transfer any items? Councillor Lohberger, you're up. Is that?
I'm just plugging my computer in, Lord Mayor.
I just wanted to consider moving item 10, the investigation report from the Integrity Commission, from closed into the open.
So is there a seconder for that? Alderman Zuko, is there any advice that the CEO would like to provide on that, or the maybe after we've considered it? It's often what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's up to you. If you've got any advice, or Mr. Young.
I think it does. Thanks, Lord Mayor. Look, we would advise that the report does include the names of individuals or an individual, and as such, I think it would be covered under the provisions of the closed and appropriate that it does stay enclosed.
Okay. All right. So that's the advice from. Is there any questions on the advice? Councillor Elliott.
We get a chance to vote on that again at the end of the closed item, do we? We can, like, if, for example, we wanted to release information except for an individual's name. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Dutta.
Oh, sorry. Just a clarification. So this particular item, because of a particular name is there, therefore they advise that we have it in the close. Can we not mention the name, or?
That might be something we discuss in the closed, right. Councillor Dutta, I think, and then it can be discussed again there. Councillor Sherlock?
I just wanted to ask, just with regards to that, from my understanding, I just did some of the things that we're all supposed to do, our modules, and within those modules it's stated that if something is enclosed and it relates to legal matters, it cannot come into the open. I'm just wondering if we go and we vote into it, we vote at the end of it, councillors potentially who are saying yes, we should be in the open are actually breaching their role as councillor or alderman. Could you just clarify that?
What I would say, Lord Mayor, is that the council needs to comply with the Local Government Act. Again, upon just reflecting on the request, I think we would be opening ourselves up in respect of particularly natural justice involved, obviously naming people without having due regard and them having the opportunity to have a say in that, but it certainly is envisaged and protected in the Local Government Act in terms of any potential legal action. Yes, and again, it's appropriate to have a conversation to clarify that further in the closed.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on the motion, which is to transfer this item into the open, I'll put that all those... Oh, did you still want to move it?
Yeah.
Councillor Elliott? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. No. Show of hands, all those in favour?
Ayes, I have. Let me go around here. Zuko, Dutta, Kelly, Elliott, and then Nose. Okay, Bloomfield, Lohberger, Passelt, Sherlock, Harvey, the Deputy Lord Mayor, and the Lord Mayor.
Okay, so that is not carried. So we'll move on now to item 4, which is communications from the Chair. And I do have some communications. So just in relation to the freedom of entry to the city, HMAS Hobart 3. On Saturday the 9th of March, HMAS Hobart 3 was granted freedom of entry to the city. It has become an Australian Navy tradition for Australian cities to grant freedom of entry to their namesake vessels. The event included a ceremonial march of 2,000 sailors in full dress uniform, accompanied by a marching band, followed by a challenge by the Commissioner of Police. Councillor Dr. Zelinda Sherlock officiated and was presented with this plaque by the Australian Fleet Commander of the Royal Australian Navy, Rear Admiral Chris Smith, AMCSM. So, nice plaque. And the second item I just wanted to mention is that on correspondence from the Danish Palace, on the 15th of January 2024, I wrote to Their Majesties King Frederick the 10th and Queen Mary, congratulating them on behalf of the City of Hobart on the occasion of the King's accession to the throne, and also mentioning our civic gift of planting a blue gum in a high-profile location in the city. And today I received correspondence from Her Majesty's Private Secretary from the Danish Royal Palace conveying Their Majesty's gratitude to the City of Hobart for its kind wishes. So that's there as well. Look. Next agenda item is notification of council workshops. So just to note that since our last meeting there have been 2 workshops. Monday the 26th of February, which was about the rating and valuation strategy, results of the annual community satisfaction survey, and Monday the 4th of March, which was a presentation from the Committee for Greater Hobart, and a annual plan progress report for the period ending 31 December 2023, and e-scooter licensing arrangements. Item 6 is public question time. I don't think we've got anyone in the chamber, so it doesn't look like we've got any questions tonight. Item 7 is petitions. Are there any petitions that have been?
There is, Lord Mayor. So we have a petition submitted by Jan Baxter, 26 Cleworthurst Place, South Hobart. The state of the subject matter is Hewen Road and Graying Avenue intersection. The actions sought by the petitioners is a review of the intersection and position of the traffic island to promote easier access to all vehicles, including but not limited to resurfacing an entrance to Graying Avenue. There were 12 signatories.
I move that be considered by the appropriate committee.
Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dutta. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Supplementary items. There is one for the open meeting. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Alderman Bloomfield. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 9 is indications of pecuniary and conflicts of interest. Are there any items that elected members would like to indicate an interest in any item on the open agenda? There being none, we'll move on.
To legal advice. Is it custom and practice for councillors to leave the room for code of conduct determinations, or it's acceptable to stay? No. Great, thank you.
Okie doke. Officer reports, item 10, the first one being the assignment of lease collection of medical artefacts coma to the Maritime Museum Semaphore Cottage at Princess Park.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded. Seconded by Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As Council's representative to the Maritime Museum, I'd just like to fully support this recommendation. It meets all the criteria that Council has with their requirements. It's not going to be costing the Council any money to do what the Maritime Museum are proposing, and they are an exemplar of how we can engage community organisations such as the Maritime Museum to activate this site, which has been empty now for quite some time. So it looks as though this will be an excellent addition to the Maritime Museum's operation. Thank you.
Further discussion? Being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 11 is Southern Tasmanian Badminton Centre, 101 Cascade Road, leasing arrangements. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Posselt. Lord Mayor.
When I first read this, I thought, oh, what's happening? You know, why are we worrying about cancelling the Badminton Centre? They've been using that for a long time, but it's for legal reasons because it's Crown land. And I'm just curious as to know whether there's any other sort of situations where we'll find ourselves in this subletting arrangement with Crown land. And a second question, probably not to Mr Young, but a second question is how many arrangements would there be that the Crown is looking after sporting facilities or is allowing sporting facilities on their land?
Mr Noy.
To the first question, I understand there's a similar issue with the bathing pavilion at Sandy Bay, where we were looking to sublease and that was not permitted, so we have had a situation to that extent. But in terms of other similar situations, not certainly common for that for us to be tripped up in that way. In relation to state government entities managing sporting facilities, well, there are Stadiums Tasmania, of course, that do manage sporting facilities, large stadiums. I'm not aware of other jurisdictions beyond that.
Thank you, but not in our municipality, as you
Not
as
that
much.
I'm aware of.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry, I think the CEO wanted to add a few points too.
Thank you.
Look, I can add, certainly from knowing Launceston as I do, that the state government owned the Orphan Sports Centre and leased that directly to community clubs, and obviously the Northern Recreation Hub that's currently being constructed is a state government owned entity. So there are similar situations across Tasmania where they do own and rent their facilities to clubs.
Yep. Okay. I think it's. I mean, it just is an example of the badminton centre is probably the place to play badminton in southern Tasmania. However, just this coordination of sporting facilities, getting a bird's eye view of where they are, how we can coordinate that, how we can support grassroots sport is just such an important component of what we as a council should be doing, I think, and for the state government to be having a better handle on it overall.
Further discussion? I might just ask a question about, did we consider requesting that we took over, that we be given the Crown land, both in this case and I'm thinking even more particularly the Sandy Bay Pavilion, because we had quite big visions for the Sandy Bay Pavilion.
Yeah, Through you, Lord Mayor. Yes, we did ask about the gifting of the land. The state government wasn't necessarily interested in that option in that case, and we're still having ongoing conversations in relation to it, as I understand it. Thank you.
And presumably some of these arrangements were made a long, long time ago, like we almost don't even have good records of when it happened, or...?
In relation to the Badminton Centre, it was a 99-year lease, and I understand it expires in 2068 or thereabouts. So that would have represented
70s,
early 70s thereabouts.
All right. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 12 is the annual plan progress report for the period ending 31 December 2023. So this was discussed at the workshop a few weeks ago. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dutta. Any discussion? Councillor Dutta?
I just have a few questions, Lord Mayor. With regards to page 34, 1.1.4, it mentions about the Climate Assembly, and I was wondering if that's completed and how was it?
Who would like to speak to that?
Lord Mayor, sorry, can you just repeat that question, Councillor Dutta?
The question is with regards to page 34, 1.1.4, where there's a mention of the Climate Assembly, and I'm just wanting to know if that's completed and how did it go?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Through you, Lord Mayor. It was completed just the weekend just gone, so concluded on the 17th of March. There is an elected member workshop next week to talk about the outcomes of the Assembly and the next step around the development of the climate change strategy.
Thank you. And the other question that I have on page 39, 2.2.1, it talks about, it's in progress, the public launch of the Hobart Respects All initiative. The campaign will continue to be delivered throughout the year, both externally and internally. My question is, how will this be delivered? What sort of programs will you have, both internally and externally?
Ms Allen, Director Allen?
Through you, Lord Mayor, there is an ongoing program of banners and external signage related to the program, and there are a number of internal staff workshops around the Hobart Respects All program and related to some training underway provided by Equal Opportunity Tasmania. That's all the detail I have on the program at this stage, but I would be happy to provide some further information.
Thank you. And the final question with regards to page 41, 2.4.2, the sparking conversations. My question is, will this grant end this year, and will there be a submission for further grant to continue this program?
Director Allen?
Lord Mayor, the current funding arrangement is due to end in December of this year, and council officers are currently in the process of preparing a submission for ongoing funding for the program for the next couple of years.
Thank you.
I think CEO wanted to add something to that too.
Thanks. Just in respect to that program, clearly that we are working on a funding application, but it's certainly intended that it will come to the executive and to council to discuss the progress and the achievements of that program in considering its continuation.
And one further question in regards to that. There's a mention that there is social capacity and resilience building activities. Now, what does this mean, social capacity? How is it constituted, where and how?
Director Allen?
Through you, Lord Mayor, there's a range of programs that are underway. Officers from the program have been out in the 12 identified communities that we're working with, door-knocking residents and having conversations with them about their bushfire preparations. Equally, the team are working with communities to put strategies in place to provide for speedy communication and working together as communities in the case of a bushfire event. So we recently had some very positive feedback from a community, I think near Tolman's Hill, where we've been working. So they recently had a fire event and were able to put in place their communication tree, which is a direct result of the outcomes of the program.
So just a follow-up question. So is that what means social capacity, is that?
Through you, Lord Mayor, yes. It's around the community's connections to each other and individual households' ability to both prepare for a bushfire event in a physical context, but also the psychological impacts both during a bushfire and post-bushfire.
Thank you. And the final question, page 56.3.3, electric vehicles as part of council fleet. How many electric vehicles do we have in the fleet currently?
Would you like to take that, Mr. Reynolds, Director Reynolds?
Thank you. I need to take that on notice. I'd have to get the exact figure for you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Posselt?
Just page 56.3.7, which is finalise and implement the City of Hobart stormwater strategy. I understand with our funding arrangements that at the moment we've got quite a lot of stormwater upgrades on hold due to lack of available capital works funds. I was just wondering what the impact of this stormwater strategy being developed over 3 years will be on the maintenance and prioritisation of that stormwater infrastructure.
Director Abey?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the Waterways Unit currently has a 3-year plan for the capital works, which is obviously subject to council approval. The flood mapping project that is mentioned, the 3-year project, will allow us to have a much clearer understanding of the overall system and how it works, and if we do this, then that needs to be adjusted. So once that body of work has been done, then we'll essentially have a reset moment where we can forward plan our stormwater infrastructure in a much better way. So it's not as if we're putting projects on hold because that's on the horizon. There is work being proposed for the next budget.
Thank you, Director Avey. Just to clarify, we're going to continue doing the capital work upgrades, but those upgrades may impact the way that we plan our stormwater infrastructure moving forward, depending on the upgrade and depending on modelling. Is that a reasonable summary?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the works that are proposed in the next financial year and are contemplated for the following financial years are works that we know need to happen anyway. They won't be influenced by the flood mapping project.
Any further discussions? Yes, Alderman Bloomfield?
Just with 4.5.2, with the Memorandum of Understanding for the Australian Antarctic Division, I note it's on hold, well not on hold, it's delayed due to staff changes in the Antarctic Division. Is this back on track now, or because we're now three months later, or are we not?
Director Allen?
I have to take that on notice and request a more current update from officers.
Any further discussion? Councillor Elliott?
Yes, please. With the recovery plan, 2022-25, I'll just check what I think. Who looks after the recovery plan? 2022 Hobart recovery plan, 22 to 25.
So if you just ask the question first, Councillor.
I was just wondering, it says in there that it's close to finalisation. I was just wondering how close and what will happen given the period of the plan is pretty much almost over, and will that just be shifted to the next few years ahead?
Director Allen?
2.4.1. Finalise the Hobart Community Recovery Plan, and it says it's in progress delayed, and it says waiting on completion of the emergency management plan. So I was just wondering, given the period of the plan is pretty much over.
Through you, Lord Mayor, we do have that plan prepared from our side of things in draft, and we're waiting for feedback on the broader plan through emergency management. So our plan is in place. It hasn't been, I guess, finally signed off through emergency management.
So just so when it is signed off, the dates will just be, the years will be shifted forward. Is that how it'll work?
That is my understanding.
Okay, thank you. Are we still on track with the transport strategy? I think I read that it was a workshop intended for March. Is that still the goal?
Mr. Noy?
Yeah, look, I think that has been pushed out to the 7th of April, is it?
It's been pushed out because we felt we needed to be able to have the sufficient time for the councillors to be able to thoroughly explore it, as opposed to having an hour to do it in by itself.
Yep, great, thank you. And with the Hobart Respects All one, does that program include respecting differences of political views?
Director Allen?
So my understanding of the program, and again I would have to get some more information on this, is that it's primarily a cultural diversity program. So it has been brought forward through our diversity and inclusion programs, but happy to get further clarification on that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments on the plan? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 13 is revised financial hardship assistance policy and rates SMS reminder service. Who'd like to move this? Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Sherlock. Any discussion? Councillor Posselt?
Thank you. Just a question to relevant officers or the CEO. Whether or not an opt-out SMS service was considered and what those deliberations contained?
Director Reynolds or Ms McNell?
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor, this will be an opt-in service only. So at the moment, nobody receives it. So once we introduce it, it'll be free and people will have the opportunity to opt in to receive the service.
Thank you. Lord Mayor, through you, was an opt-out service considered?
Through you, Lord Mayor, no, we didn't consider an opt-out service. We don't automatically receive mobile numbers from our ratepayers. It's not a requirement that they provide mobile numbers to us, so we simply don't have a mobile number for each ratepayer. So they would have to opt in for privacy and other reasons in order to receive such a service from the council.
Further discussion? Councillor Posselt?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I've got no issues with anything in here, and the SMS concept is a good one, and that's why I'm asking the questions regarding an opt-out service. My understanding is that there are other organisations that provide opt-out billing reminders. Potentially Aurora does. But certainly from my perspective as a really busy dad and someone who is likely to forget my rates notice by a couple of days, the extra onus on me to have to then go through and fill out forms, as is suggested in the report, to sign up to get the SMS reminder is a little bit counterintuitive to what we're trying to achieve, which is to remind people to pay, really busy people, to pay their bills on time. And I guess I would really like to see officers go back and look more deeply at opt-out rather than opt-in, where the whole municipality just gets a text message dump and you can reply stop and you won't get any more. That's how these things often work with larger companies. So, I mean, it's up to the council if they want to defer or amend for this, but I suppose with that commentary in mind, does the CEO have any commentary that he might like to add to my comments?
Look, I think through you, Lord Mayor, like for the reasons that were cited by the officer, it's not possible to be able to access the mobile number of the ratepayers to be able to do that. So I think in the first instance, instituting an opt-in service is going to be the only option we have, and I understand what you're saying and agree that that's an extra step that someone has to take, but I think experience suggests that people do take that where it's been rolled out in other councils. So, and I think this is a good first step and a proactive one to have that available, and maybe that's something to be examined in terms of the data we collect from our ratepayers moving forward, perhaps.
Thank you.
I'm actually,
Alderman Zuko.
yeah, look, I'm actually happy with the opt-in process. I do a lot of online payments through a number of organisations through my business, and I actually set it up through their portals. So I think rates notice, you've got an option there. If it's a hard copy rates notice, it goes out. Option to opt in and go from there. I just think that's the best way to go. I'm very supportive of the opt-in process.
Alderman Bloomfield.
I appreciate Councillor Posselt's point of view with opt-out. Notwithstanding the fact that we don't necessarily have them, it also might build an unfair expectation of the ratepayers, thinking we do have their phone number when in fact we don't. And then when they all say, well, we didn't get the text, how come? We might actually end up with some problems from that point of view as well. But also to, as was mentioned by the CEO, if we were to include the mobile phone as part of the transfer, so when rates were initially established on the new ownership of a property, over time it should be something we'll consider, but only once we've got to within a critical mass.
Kelly.
Yes, I agree with the comments of Alderman Bloomfield and Zuko. I mean, I find it invasive enough now with the amount of text messages, emails, spam and all that sort of stuff we get. Council adding to that pile, I think, is too invasive. There's plenty of time to review that later on, and really, I think the system works well as it is. Thanks.
Any further discussion? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 14 is Salamanca Place Amplified Music Trial 2024 update. Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Alderman Zuko. Any discussion? Being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 15 is City of Hobart rate postponements policy rescind.
Moved.
Moved by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Sherlock. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Could I just have I've read the report, but I just want some further background as to why these have been outstanding for so long.
Ms McDonnell.
Thank you. Through you, Lord Mayor. This is a long-standing policy that the city has had in place. I think we first adopted it in the 1990s. At that time, it was agreed that, pursuant to Section 125 of the Local Government Act, that Council would offer a rate postponement for eligible pensioners. So you had to be a pensioner in order to qualify. And basically, it allowed a lifetime postponement of your rates, 50% of your rates at a 5% interest rate per annum. We haven't had an application under this policy for at least a decade. We only have 4 ratepayers currently who received an ongoing postponement, and the postponement is basically for the life of the applicant, so until the property is sold.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Can I ask a question? Didn't we do a fair bit of this during COVID?
Yes, through you, Lord Mayor, we did indeed. And in fact, the financial hardship assistance policy was created during COVID. So we currently have 2 separate policies. We have this one, which is an age policy, and we have the financial hardship assistance policy. So we're proposing we rescind this one and keep offering support under the primary financial.
Yep. Great. Okay.
Just a further question, because
Lord Mayor.
Thank you, and through you, Lord Mayor. So I heard this week that the ATO is expecting, or has quite a lot of taxes to follow up and chase up post-COVID. Are we finding ourselves in that sort of situation where there is an increase in hardship presently?
Through you, Lord Mayor, in respect of increasing traditionally we receive about between 30 and 70 in any given year requests for support. I currently have 32 requests for support on the books, so we're currently providing support to 32 ratepayers.
For the financial year? Yep, thank you.
Just wanted to confirm, the 4 that are currently on this particular thing that we're going to cancel or look at rescinding, what happens to those 4 people? Are we, in fact, telling them it's back to normal, or are they going to be honoured and respected until completion? Or what are we doing with those 4 people?
Back to now.
Thank you, through you, Lord Mayor. We do have a separate report on the closed agenda to deal with the specifics, but it is recommended that we grandfather those accounts. They currently show on the rate notice, so when you receive a rate notice, if you're one of those property owners, that postponed amount does sit there and shows on the rate notice as being postponed, so it is proposed that we grandfather it.
Okay, any further discussion on this item? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 16 is potential disposal of part of Selfs Point land. Moved by Councillor Lohberger, seconded by Councillor Sherlock. Discussion? Councillor Kelly?
Did you want to go? No, you go first.
I'll ask a question. I've just got a question through you, Lord Mayor. I'm just looking at the recommendations, and recommendation 3 does actually state that should we be required to undertake a consultation, that the sale of the property be conditional on not receiving any objection at all. I find that's a little bit troubling, given that just one person can seemingly sort of stop the whole process with an objection. So I just wanted to ask a question of the staff about why we would cease the whole process having received only one objection, potentially.
Who would like to answer that? CEO?
Well, it's a
question for the report, but I could speak to the governance, please, if you want. Yeah, thank you, through your chair. So look, I mean, as there's a memo that came out with this as well, so I think that's a point well made about the one objection. I mean, the other thing is it is actually at Taswater's discretion to acquire the land via other means, but I take your point. If we are to front end the disposal ourselves, there's a process we have to go through, and consultation and objections are part of that process, come what may.
Supplementary in that case, Lord Mayor. So what would then happen? We receive an objection, the sale stops, and do we then go through the objection and then the sale is back on once that issue has been resolved or potentially resolved?
Again, through you, Chair, it would depend on the nature of the objection. I mean, you might have an objection that is specific to the sale of the land, or it might be an objection that wants conditioning around buffer zones or something else, but the actual transfer of the land isn't kind of at the heart of the matter. It's kind of hard to give general advice without seeing a specific objection.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Further discussion on the recommendation? Councillor Kelly?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I've thought hard and long about this proposal, and I requested a site visit, which was attended by myself, Alderman Bloomfield and Harvey, and it was great to go out there with the director yesterday. And look, in the late 80s, I was engaged as a contractor down at Macquarie Point, and when they were constructing the new wastewater treatment plant. As I stood there admiring the water views of the Cenotaph, Kenyani, Mount Wellington, I said to the site foreman, "What's actually going here?" And he said, "A sewage treatment plant." I was somewhat stunned by this response, standing on this historical site with the incredible potential that it had and what was going to be happening there. At the same time too, I was involved in rowing at Newtown Bay, which is in Selfs Point, and my son also played rugby on the grounds up against that. And I observed the transformation of the 2.5 hectares of wasteland, which was a former tip site, into an incredible wetlands area that treated wastewater and at the same time created refuge for bird life, frogs and vegetation. This cost millions of dollars and was also opened with great fanfare. At the same time, the then planning scheme for this part of Self's Point was zoned recreation and aimed, and I quote, to continue to provide areas of natural bushland and facilities for the passive and visual recreation and enjoyment of residents, workforces and visitors to Hobart, unquote, and also to avoid creating a general industrial zone in this location. Fast forward to tonight's meeting, and before us we have a plan that involves the demolition of the Macquarie Point treatment plant, or the great part of it. There will be some redundancy there. The pumping of sewage and waste 4.5 kilometres upriver and then 4.5 kilometres back again down to Macquarie Point. The construction on Hobart ratepayers' land, the sewage plant that borders rowing clubs, a new basketball facility, and also importantly the residences of Lutana and the Stainforth Court public housing. The state government has known for at least 5 years that an alternative site to Macquarie Point has been required, and now with the stadium looming large over the site, the pressure is really on them to meet the AFL's edict. Speaking of the AFL, the High Performance Centre, which has now been lost to the current City Council, could have been accommodated, I believe, on this site. Bizarrely, this was never considered in a very comprehensive study, I understand. And tonight before us, the pressure is on us to fast-track the transfer of our land to TasWater. Officers' advice to us is that deferring the matter will lead to commercial complications. Michael Ferguson describes the relocation as vital for the Hobart Macquarie Point development, otherwise known as the AFL Stadium. Furthermore, we also have been told that if we don't agree, that it will be compulsorily acquired. And if we consider all that, it's not about a football stadium or sewage works, it's about the processes of decision making that we are involved with here. The wetlands area may well not have worked the first time, but was there any real effort made to rectify this incredibly forward-thinking project at the time? This tale of two prime pieces of important Hobart real estate is a tale of systemic lack of strategic planning, wasting hundreds of $millions of Tasmania's hard-earned money, abandoning the future thinking of the 1980s planning scheme and the groundbreaking wetlands project, ignoring the residents, the sportsmen and men of the adjoining environment. It is disappointing that TasWater are only building to a secondary and not a best practice tertiary system that their mainland counterparts are typically constructing these days. Surely there is a more appropriate site south that avoids pumping over 10 kilometres upriver, then again at least another 10 kilometres downstairs to be pumped out, downstream to be pumped out to Blinking Billy Point. The decision should not be about a so-called windfall of money for us as well, but about intelligent, responsible governance and the future of the community and our environment. This really is a major decision for us to make and not just another agenda item tonight. I cannot, in all conscience, support the disposal of our important Self's Point land for a sewage works.
Thank you. Other further discussion?
Just a question to the director or the CEO. If this land is not sold, from the report, it is my understanding that it can be compulsorily acquired. Is that correct?
CEO? Oh, Mr. Noy.
Yes, that certainly is correct. The ability to compulsorily acquire the land.
Councillor Dutton.
I take the points made by Councillor Kelly, but unfortunately, in having read the report and the predicament we find ourselves in, makes it very difficult not to support the recommendation. So, having read in detail and the various arguments presented, while I'm saying I quite understand, and I also want to ask the question if we have in any way made consultation with the First Nations people with regards to heritage, cultural heritage values. I'm not aware of that. But again, my reasoning is that if we don't take this path, the recommendation given to us, then it will be compulsorily acquired, which will be not in a good place to be. Thank you.
Further discussion? Alderman Bloomfield.
Having met with Taswater before this meeting, having also attended, as Councillor Kelly mentioned, yesterday's site, it is in pretty poor condition. It is a old tip site, so the contamination really does limit what we could do with that site. It's unfair to suggest many uses that people are probably considering for what effectively is very close to the waterline. One of the interesting questions that I had in fact asked the sewage people today, with Taswater, sorry, was that they suggested that these types of treatment plants actually need to be near water courses because of the way things are done. So no matter where this is, it is going to be near water. So no matter where it is, it's going to effectively take land from somewhere that could possibly be fantastic residential potential. So ultimately, the fact that it's a recycled tip area is probably most appropriate than anything. It was interesting too to learn that the things they intend to install there will be state-of-the-art, and that things like smell, which is definitely one of the most impactful elements of these systems, is going to be addressed quite profoundly, to the point where they said that it won't be anything close to what we have currently experienced. So for taking all of that into consideration, a bit like what Councillor Dulles suggested, really we are in a position where we need to take control of this sale to the best advantage for the ratepayers, rather than to walk away and allow it to be done for us, because then we won't control the contingency, the price. Today we have an opportunity to say yes, but this is what we want to do, and I believe that's actually quite important.
Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Alderman Zuko. I first visited this site in 2000 as part of a tour during an environmental studies course at the university, and it smelt then, and it smells today, and it'll smell into the future if nothing happens. So I'm confident that this new sewerage works will be a modern plant, and talking with the representatives of Taswater tonight assured me of a few things that I'm keen to see happen, and that's the creation of energy through biodigesters, the treatment of biosolids by producing biochar with the biosolids, and also the fact that the site that it will go on, that we're looking at selling tonight, is a failed wetland. It hasn't been used as a wetland for a long, long time. I remember it as a wetland because I visited it a number of times and had a look at the birds. But it is a contaminated site. It failed. It needs something else to happen there. And you're talking about an area that is quite an industrial area. Just down the end of the road, you have the oil storage area. And back a bit, you have an industrial concrete barren area, which is not a very attractive site anyway. Also very low, opposite the cemetery. So that'll hopefully improve somewhat with a bit of a plan to, vegetate the area going forward. But I think this site is a reasonable site to expand the sewage works. I can't see any other site, and starting with a new site from scratch would have a bigger footprint than putting it here, because you'd be taking something away, some other land, which Alderman Bloomfield alluded to, other development site that might have housing on it. So I'm comfortable selling this land, and if I wasn't, I would speak up about it. I think it's a good site for this project. It needs to happen. It'll be a better outcome for residents across the rivulet, a better outcome for people at Queen's Walk apartments. So I'll be supporting it tonight. Also, remember that we're about to upgrade Newtown Rivulet as well. So that'll be a much more attractive, pleasant place going forward once it's been, once it's had the concrete removed and it's had thousands of plants put along the riverbank. That's a bit of an eyesore as well. So that will improve the area. That will also benefit the rowing sheds, the, what's it called? What card game do they play? The Cat Centre, but what's it called? They play euchre, not euchre? Bridge. It'll also improve the appeal of the bridge club. They'll have a few more trees around it, hopefully. But I think overall this will be an improvement for the area.
Alderman Zuko.
Yeah, Lord Mayor, this takes me back to my first 2.5 years of being on this council, if anyone can remember. I think Mr Noy might remember. In those days, actually, it was quite unique. You couldn't actually bring the same notice of motion up within 3 months of the old notice of motion those days, which was quite unique as well. And I always found a way of rewriting the notice of motion into the sewage treatment works at the time, Lord Mayor, because what we actually built at Selfs Point in the 90s was not the way to go. There were far many more sophisticated plants which I brought to the attention of this council. I used to have piles and piles and piles of documentation at the time. Look, I can't remember the actual terminologies of them at the time, but it's a long time ago. But there were plants that were being built overseas, Lord Mayor, which are all fully integrated underground. You never saw anything. They were above sports fields and everything like that. You know, I still think that we could, you know, I know it'll cost a lot more money now, Lord Mayor, but that's the type of thing that I would like to envisage that we could be working towards. But if we build this, we're never going to see it. What I do like about this, Lord Mayor, is the fact that hopefully in the future, the integration of other treatment plants into this will mean that we can get rid of the one at Prince of Wales Bay and further on. And I think that is probably the best benefit to southern Tasmania.
Good point.
Look, I don't necessarily. I actually feel for the points raised by Councillor Kelly, because I think it's quite valid. That land could have been used for other purposes and potentially better purposes than a sewage treatment plant. But at the end of the day, we need to find a solution for Macquarie Point, because as far as I'm concerned, Macquarie Point was built in the wrong spot at the time, and it was one of those things that I really hoped we could demolish at the time and build an underground plant. Where I fought very hard was somewhere in Sandy Bay. I won't go down the track now where it was proposed, but it would have been under a sports field. Lord Mayor, the only concern I have with this is if we as a council say no, the potential of the government, whoever the future government will be, of acquiring the land, and we end up getting zero for it. So on that basis, to my point of view, if we can negotiate a sale price, at the end of the day, we will end up removing, hopefully in the future, 3 or 4 other treatment plants around the place, get a better outcome, but I still don't think it's the Rolls Royce. We're probably just getting a VW, not a Rolls Royce, but at the end of the day, it's the best thing we can hope for, because we don't control it anymore. So I will support it in a reluctant manner. Thank you.
Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I live near the Selfs Point. I live near Selfs Point. I regularly attend Rugby Park to watch rugby. I walk around the Cornelian Bay area and the old cemetery. Look, the smell from the existing sewage plant, it really does affect all those areas, as well as the Queen's Walk housing site, the Cat Centre and the Rowing Club. Now, Taswater says to us that the smell, the odour will be dramatically reduced in that area. And I think that's a massive bonus for the people who live at Queen's Walk and for all the users of the other fields and the cemetery especially. As Alderman Zuko has pointed out, if we don't vote for this tonight, we're probably going to lose the land anyway. It's going to be compulsorily acquired. I do take Councillor Kelly's points, but I think Councillor Harvey has pointed out that we will be getting another wetland remediation quite close by, and that there will be a lot of areas for water to flow and for better outcomes really for our Newtown rivulet. So look, I will be supporting this, but I'm a bit like Alderman Zuko, I'm a little bit reluctant to do it because I feel like we're being forced to do so. However, it is the best option, I think, so I will be voting for this.
The discussion, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I suppose there's a little concern that I have. Whilst this has been mooted for some time, suddenly we're having to make a decision about whether we accept this offer for this, to have this land for a treatment works. So, like this is before us tonight, and this is what we're considering. I think for me, and I hear what Councillor Kelly's concerns are in relation to making sure that it is state of the art. Well, unfortunately I couldn't go to the briefing, but I'd like perhaps to have that clarified as to how good this treatment works will be and how effective it will be for our municipality. So that's one question to ask. I also think that the treatment of waste is a big factor in our society. It's not going to go away. We need to be doing this well, and we know that there are facilities. We've seen court cases where there have been rogue operators who have treated waste in poor ways. So, it might be composting facilities, it might be biomass, and there has to be, again, as I was talking about the sporting, the sporting facilities across southern Tasmania, we need to be able to have these facilities that are working well, that aren't closed down by the EPA when they're not working well. I mean, this is Taswater and a Taswater facility, but it's just that broader approach to how we treat waste or how we view waste as well. So back to my question, is this the most state-of-the-art facility that we're likely to have built here? And is it going to be, Councillor Kelly talked about the pumping back and forth, so I'm just curious to know how much more energy or how less effective or more effective that might be, given its repositioning.
I will, thanks Lord Mayor. I think the thing to bear in mind in this process is the sale is one particular process that we need to consider, but then there's the development application, which is probably the appropriate forum more to be able to answer the questions that you're putting to us tonight, because we simply don't have that information beyond that we've been provided in a brief presentation from Taswater. What I can say is that Taswater now is beholden upon the Environmental Protection Authority requirements in respect of the construction or upgrade of sewage treatment plants, and so that is a high bar. And again, Council will have the opportunity through the development application process to have oversight of that, even though the EPA undertakes the environmental assessment. The Council, as planning authority, still considers and issues or determines the planning permit.
Thank you.
Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, the last 24 hours have seen footy fever sweep the state, with about 15% of the state's population signing up to be a founding member of our new Tassie AFL team. Now, why is this relevant? No one in this debate has really raised the fact that the key thing that's being the key outcome that is occurring as a result of this land transfer is in fact the ability to move the sewage treatment plant off Macquarie Point. Now, it doesn't matter if you're pro Stadium 1, pro Stadium 2, anti-stadium, pro Indigenous Reconciliation Park. All of those options require that the sewage plant be moved. And at the moment, the state is saying this is the best place to move it to. It's at an existing facility. It does, as other elected members have pointed out, it does reduce smells and improve the environment in the local area of Sells Point, affecting Bridge Club, rugby, rowing. And having watched a few games of rugby myself, it can get pretty stenchy down there. So it's a great thing. The compulsory acquisition hanging over us, I mean, of course it's relevant, but even without the compulsory acquisition hanging over us, it's a sensible move because Macquarie Point is fundamentally more valuable than Sells Point, which is built on My understanding, feel free to correct me, but Selfs Point is built on a old rubbish dump that was subsequently turned into reclaimed land, and that was the origins of some of that Newtown Bay rivulet area. I may be using the wrong term, but the outlet of Newtown rivulet flows into what is nearby a tip. So it's not a valuable piece of land. It's not environmentally or ecologically valuable. It makes sense, and it facilitates development, whatever that development may be. It facilitates development at the much more important Macquarie Point site, and that's why I will be supporting the officer's recommendation this evening to pass that land on to Taswater.
Councillor Sherlock.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I won't really reiterate what's already been said regarding the compulsory acquisition. I did want to note that, as I think Councillor Posselt and Alderman Bloomfield pointed out, it is an old tip site, obviously, and they did discuss the contamination issues today, which was really interesting to hear about as well. I did ask the question about what the total reduction in organic waste load to the river would be, and it was about 5%. I also asked the question about how they would do the disinfection, which was chlorine, because I just wanted to know what would be the impacts into the river. You know, like you said, Lord Mayor, at the briefing today, it's not at that tertiary level that we were talking about. But despite that, I think they've tried to do their best under the conditions that they have and what they are offering to us at the moment. Councillor Harvey's already reiterated the points, so I won't say that. So whilst I understand what Councillor Kelly is saying, moving it further down the river really may not be feasible, because that would really mean that there'd be a lot of cost involved in pumping water. It's already draining down towards Self Point anyway. So really, I understand what Councillor Kelly is saying. I fully appreciate his position, and I think that really, for me, there are two options here. Number one, we don't do it. Well, what's the outcome of that? They'll take it anyway. Does the ratepayer benefit? No, they don't. So what's the second option? We try and benefit the ratepayer by doing what's already going to happen anyway. And that to me means following the recommendation. Thank you.
Further discussion? Any further contributions? Yeah, I might have a few words just because it is a very significant thing to sell a piece of public land. And I did want to ask a question about once, if we do sell the land, and once we sell the land, will we still get rates from Taswater? Do they pay rates? Taswater pay rates to us? Oh. Yep.
I believe that Taswater pays rates just like any other ratepayer in the municipality.
Okay.
And the only properties that don't pay rates are those that are exempt under Section 87 of the Act, and Taswater is not one of those organisations.
So if you wouldn't mind taking it on notice and what we might, what the sale might also bring in terms of annual rates increase as well. Just interested in that. But it's been a really interesting discussion, and I have learnt a lot about, particularly from Councillor Kelly's contributions about the history of the wetland. I wasn't aware of that in depth, and also that you can build these particular facilities underground, which of course must happen in all sorts of parts of the world. I do feel that we are not necessarily getting that gold class water infrastructure that many in the community would like to see. You know, this is going to be a facility that's there for many decades. It's going to support growth in Hobart, and I would have liked to have seen a bit more, like when it gets to the stage of, it's not really DA, we potentially could have had some negotiating power through the sale of the land with a covenant that we wanted to see recycling by a certain date, or we wanted to see a circular economy station by a certain date. But whether or not we actually, you know, could negotiate that without it just being taken from us, I'm not sure. But our point of influence with TasWater to get the best facility possible is probably in some ways now through some sort of covenant with the sale. But, you know, I think possibly that's not, in an ideal world, that would be nice. But I was a little bit underwhelmed with, although odour will improve and yes, it'll be better than it is now, it's still not, we're not really sort of aiming very high, it seems, in terms of the tertiary water, the tertiary treatment. The fact that it's sort of going to be pumped both ways is, you know, does seem a bit strange. You know, I would like to see some certainty about when we're going to get the recycling and the circular economy facilities, because I think that's you know, we really want to see that happen as soon as possible for the City of Hobart for a whole range of other reasons. So, yeah, it's not perfect, but I think for all of the other reasons everyone's raised, I will be supporting the sale. I did have a question about the sale proceeds and whether could council resolve potentially in the recommendation, I'd just seek some advice, that a proportion of the sale the proceeds from the sale goes towards that Newtown Rivulet Rewilding project, because last time I asked about that Newtown Rivulet Rewilding project, it was pretty uncertain about where the money was coming from. We were going to have to apply for some. It was a fantastic idea, very collaborative project with Glenorchy, and if we could actually include in the recommendation a request, even that the CEO be asked to look at whether a proportion of the sale proceeds could be invested in that project, we could get moving on it, and then that would, I guess, resolve some of the issues that Councillor Kelly's talking about a loss of open space. We could sort of really pursue that project, which is going to enhance the open space of that area and, you know, get that fabulous project moving. So that's a question, I guess, for the CEO, whether that would be appropriate, but then obviously someone else would need to move that from the floor.
Lord Mayor. Look, I think I would certainly be more comfortable with a motion that would seek to investigate rather than commit here tonight, because there are factors that we would need to investigate and take into account. Obviously, if it's included in our budget and annual plan, it really doesn't matter where the funds are coming from. They're coming from our council budget. But nonetheless, we could certainly, if it could be couched around investigate, I'd be more than willing to do that and report back to council.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if anyone wants to move that or whether I can come off the floor and...
Yeah, I'd move that to investigate along the lines of the CEO.
Seconded by Councillor Lohberger. So I think Councillor Posselt.
Thank you. Just a suggestion further to the last, that is that we ask, if we're going to spend this money in that way, that we ask TasWater to potentially see if they want to contribute as well as part of the explorations.
And it wouldn't be, I wouldn't be saying investigate the entire proceeds, but just a portion of it, maybe. So is there, I'm just wondering whether we've actually got a clear amendment for Mr. Young.
Through you, Chair. So I'm just noting this down along the lines of that the CEO be tasked with investigating costs relevant to the remediation of Newtown Rivulet. Is that sufficiently captured, or do you want to go a step further?
No, I think it's whether part of the sale proceeds could go towards the Newtown Rivulet Rehabilitation Project, and whether TasWater may also be willing to contribute. Okay, so we've got that, and that's been moved, and now I think Alderman Zuko wants to speak to that.
Yeah. So, look, Lord Mayor, I don't think this is appropriate. I think this is making decisions on the run, even if it's an investigation. This is relevant to a sale of property of council and the Selfs Point treatment plant. I think that in regards to what we do with council funds in generally, as a CEO has stated, I think that should be looked at budget time, and if council wants to consider that, or officers believe it should be part of the budget, it is. Now, I've already stated in some of the budget meetings that we shouldn't be getting too involved in putting up our pet projects up all the time. No due respects, Lord Mayor. To my point of view, this is totally on the fly, and I cannot support it. I support things that go through proper process. This is not proper process. Even though we're going to investigate for this, I don't think it's even, even something that's been on our agenda to actually do something with this at this point in time. So I cannot support it. It's on the fly. I'm sorry.
Councillor Posselt.
No, Councillor Harvey. You're right.
Councillor Harvey.
Lord Mayor, I think Alderman Zuko is correct here. I would hate to think that we would jeopardise a grant or wherever the funding's coming from for the Newtown Rivulet restoration project, because we're taking money that we don't have and promising to spend it on a project that we haven't started. So I think they're two separate things. I'm not going to support a motion that says that we should take that money and spend it on the rivulet when we don't know where the money's coming from. Well, sorry, I assume there's money available for the rivulet and it probably needs a top up with grants or whatever, but to say we'll spend that money on that undermines any opportunity we have to seek funding for the rivulet if we need additional funding.
Can I just ask a question about that clarity? Like, do we have money for the Newtown Rivulet project, and are we seeking a grant for it? Director Abbey.
Lord Mayor, there is some funding allocated to that project in this financial year for the planning, and that process is underway. We have also submitted an application to the Urban Rivers grant for the majority of the funding of that project.
And how much is that?
I believe it's in the ballpark of $2 million.
That's federal money, is it?
I'm not sure about that, Lord Mayor.
I think it is, yeah.
Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I think that pragmatic decisions that are not an actual inherent decision right now on the run are great opportunistic moments where you see a moment where you can say, hey, you know what, that's a really good idea. I'd never thought of that. That's awesome. So kudos to the Lord Mayor for putting this idea forward. The thing that makes it highly relevant to the decision we're making this evening is that the land on which we are proposing a sewerage plant goes, which we're going to dispose to Taswater, is in fact a wetland. It was designed as a wetland, and it's an area where bird life and native flora and fauna can thrive, and admittedly this one hasn't gone quite to plan since it was designed. Now, immediately adjacent to that is an area that we're looking to convert from a concrete canal into a wetland, into an area where native flora and fauna can thrive. And using the money that you gain from the sale to replace what's lost as a result of the sale is pretty sensible and pragmatic, I would have thought. Further to that, this is only a report. We're asking for some investigation to be done with the key idea is that, well, maybe we can use this money to make the Newtown Rivulet better, to provide a great place for native flora and fauna. Why don't we ask the CEO to go and find out what the situation is and report back to council? That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. We're not making decisions on the fly, and when we have that report back, then we can make an informed decision as per the Act with qualified advice. But for this to request a report is very simple, it's pragmatic, it's opportunistic, and it might even yield some money from the state government from Taswater. I appreciate the grant opportunity is there. However, I might ask officers, when was the last time that council, or how many grants has council received over $2 million in the last 5 years?
Through you, Lord Mayor, I'd have to take that on notice.
Thank you. I suspect that $2 million grants are not that common, especially for the it's a great environmental project, it's an urban rivers project, yes, but if you go to any other capital city, you will find concrete jungles that carry stormwater out to the main rivers. This is no different, it's not special. I think that we should still apply, but it's likely that we'll only get a portion of the funding and that we can use this money to top it up. But all of that will be clear and clarified in the report should the council determine that we want the CEO to go away and do half a day's work with staff on this matter.
Alderman Bloomfield.
When we discussed this earlier, I was under the impression that Taswater wants this sorted as soon as possible. I was also under the impression that we don't have an extra month to make the decision, that by delaying this decision tonight on this sale may in fact simply push us immediately to them simply making the decision and doing so, that we lose an opportunity. I am the last person in the room who really wants to push through an agreement or disagreement to sell this property today, but I'm equally aware that should we not make that decision, we'll have it taken from us. And the decision of what we do with the money post can be done post. You know, because ultimately what this amendment will do, will delay the decision by at least a month. Meanwhile, we find ourselves having been lessened of land through no choice.
Just clarification. There's no proposal for this to be delayed. This would just be part of the decision, but there's no proposal to delay the decision to sell the land.
So you want to do it at the same time? That's what your motion is?
Yeah, it's just it's the sale it's about the sale proceeds. So it's just because we're discussing it tonight, and it saves time having a separate discussion about it to just ask the CEO to do it. But there's no proposal to stop the decision on the sale. No. Councillor Lohberger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to speak briefly. I don't think we're making a decision here tonight. I think we're actually seeking further information, and that we can make the decision down the track when we get that further information. I don't see anything wrong per se with that process, and I do think the proposal is a good one, that we sell a former wetland that's not working very well, and we have a look at maybe using that money to rehabilitate a grotty old concrete canal that is falling apart into a beautiful wetland right next door, really, to the site we're talking about. So I think it's a pretty good idea, and I will be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Well, Mayor, can I just clarify that grant we're talking about? Yeah, it's a $200 million grant to restore waterways in urban areas. So with $200 million for the whole of Australia, I would say we have a good chance of receiving a grant, and that's what the officers are hoping for as well. So we're applying for the larger grants, which are up to a big amount of money. So potentially, Stream 2 large-scale project grants between $2 million and $10 million for projects that include co-investment. So maybe we do need to have some other money, but I dare say we've got a good chance of getting one of those grants, and a co-investment we've already got because we've already allocated money towards this. So the council has already co-invested, haven't we?
Planning, Councillor Hardy.
Through you, Lord Mayor, just to clarify, we have applied for the lowest bracket with the idea that we would not make the 50-50 contribution. So we are asking for a fairly ambitious amount, but we have worked hard on the application, and we've had feedback from the grants team, and all we can do is put our best foot forward.
So can I seek clarification? So the grant proposal would prefer us to have a 50-50 contribution, and currently we don't have that.
No, Lord Mayor, it is proposed on the basis that the funding is standalone, accepting that we have already contributed some amounts, but it's not proposed on a 50-50 basis.
The federal government doesn't require that.
No, it's up to $2 million.
Straight, yeah, okay.
Just a final question. So Glenorchy City Council is part of this proposal. Are they in with this grant as well?
Through you, Lord Mayor, the Glenorchy City Council have provided a letter of support. They are also obviously part of the planning and the construction processes, as I understand it. And I believe that part of the cost would cover the cost of their part of it. So it's certainly not Hobart acting on our own. It's very much with Glenorchy.
Okay, further discussion. Is it a question, Councillor Loeb?
I just had a further question for the Director through you. Will the Council getting a report into potentially allocating some extra money to this project, how will that affect the grant, the application for the grant, I guess? So I think that's the key issue.
Director AB.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm not familiar enough with the rules of the grant process to provide the Council with any guidance tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Sherlock,
Yeah,
did you
look,
want
that was my question, so thank you very much, Councillor Loeb.
Councillor Dutta.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. No, I accepted your proposal and therefore moved it because I see there's a clear demarcation and difference. Firstly, this is not a decision-making. If it was a decision-making process, then I would have absolutely supported those who have taken that particular argument. But unfortunately, it is not a decision-making process. For me, that is the issue. The issue here is with the recommendation of the CEO, who suggested that this will be a better way to go. And taking his professional advice and suggestion, I then moved accordingly. And therefore, I see very little, debate in this issue. If it was decision-making that will stop the whole thing and stop the buzz, I would say, no, please, I won't. But for me, my perception, my understanding was simply to see if we can investigate. If nothing happens, there is no decision at all. Thank you so much.
Councillor Posselt, is it a question?
It is, yeah. Just to legal would probably be the best person, but or the CEO. Yeah, sure. Through you, Lord Mayor. Surely a exercise to assess the lay of the land would not impact on a grant process.
Probably one for the CEO rather than...
Yeah, sure.
Lord Mayor. So I think an investigation of whether or not to utilise some of these funds for this purpose, it certainly, we would examine whether there's any implications for the grant, assuming we're awarded the grant, or in anticipation that we might. So I think any investigation that's done thoroughly would be able to consider that and then give the Council the options to be able to consider. And given that we're now deep into budget deliberations, it's appropriate that it be part of that process moving forward anyway.
If there's no further discussion, I'll put the amendment. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. No. Show of hands. All those in favour?
I have Dutta, Bloomfield, Lohberger, Posselt, Sherlock, Deputy Lord Mayor and Lord Mayor.
And against?
I have Zuko, Elliott, Kelly, and Harvey. Sorry.
So that's carried. We'll move on to the motion as amended. I don't think there's any further discussion on the motion as amended now, so I'm going to put the substantive motion as amended. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried. Councillor Kelly,
no,
you happy?
Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
All those in favour say aye. Aye. Raise your hands.
Sorry, I'm just going in. So I'm showing ayes. Dutta, Zuko, Dutta, Bloomfield, Lohberger, Posselt, Elliott, Sherlock, Harvey, Deputy Mayor, Lord Mayor.
And against? So that's carried. We'll move on now to a motion from me, so I'll ask the Deputy Lord Mayor to take the chair.
Item 17.
So I'll seek to move the motion and see if there's a seconder.
Councillor Posselt, discussion.
Okay, so just to, I have set out most of the arguments there in the motion, which I'm hoping people have read, but just to provide a little bit of extra commentary. Hobart is really proud of our role as a creative city. Our Creative Hobart strategy identifies that the city is a platform for creative expression. Our public art framework, which came in 2019, sets goals to increase opportunities for artists' work to be seen in and from public areas. I know that the city is very committed to this vision. Elected members are, staff are, but sometimes issues do arise that are unexpected, that highlight that tweaks can be made to ensure we can stand really proudly behind our Creative Hobart brand. So one of those moments that arose unexpectedly was a few weeks ago. A post from one of our best known young street artists went viral all around the country and was particularly noticed by a lot of street artists around the country and the world. And the post explained, as it explained, and I'm not saying the post was 100% accurate, but I'm just saying how it was explained, that the City of Hobart workers had painted over his mural. The mural had been painted on a private property. It was approved by the property owners, and the council officers had painted over the mural with black paint. The community of street art lovers were shocked by this. You know, how could a council, in the words of some of the commentary, how could a council censor and remove art? How could a council, particularly as well known for its creative brand as Hobart, and wanting to be a creative city, do something that was sort of anti public art? So what people didn't know about the example is that in this particular case, the property owner was required to get a planning permit. Not all of our street art does require it, but in this case, he was required to, and he didn't want to pay $800. Now, we could debate whether it's right or wrong for whether someone should pay $800 to commission a piece of art on their property. Or we could say that as a council, what we want to do, what we're keen to do, is encourage more public art, and that if there's ways we can reduce barriers to this occurring, then we're keen to do that, as we're made aware of them. Again, this wasn't necessarily intended, it was just these things come up, and we're here to kind of tweak things as we go. So I wasn't aware of this barrier until this incident, and not all, as I said, not all planning murals do require planning permits, but some do. So what I know is that in this case, and in future cases, it's likely that having a planning permit application fee did impact on this artwork, the fee of $800. And what I know is that it may impact on others in the future commissioning artworks on their private property. We do have some really amazing buildings and places that are owned privately in the city, and that those places would benefit from being an amazing canvas for our wonderful artists. So my motion is really appealing to you all to let's do what we can to make it easier, not harder, for private property owners to commission artists to do work. And that's the nature of the motion. A city's reputation as a creative place can be influenced by many acts of generosity, acts of openness, acts of innovation. And this particular act is quite a small one. It's a fairly modest one in terms of the cost to the council, but it's one of those small gestures that will be appreciated by the lovers of public art and street art, and it'll also give us an opportunity to promote the idea of commissioning murals on private land to new audiences. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Alderman Zuko.
Yeah, I have a question through you to the appropriate officer, if I may. If a person owned a property on a corner and they were seeking to do some redevelopment on that particular site, and part of it was signage and public art, would they have to pay any extra fees other than the original DA fees?
Maybe.
For you, Deputy Lord Mayor, if artwork is proposed as part of an existing DA, then no, there's no additional fee payable.
I asked that specifically for a reason, because there is some street art in Pitt Street that was, like, there's a restaurant there on the corner, the street art right across it. And that was part of the original DA. I actually like the idea of this, but I don't like the idea of it costing ratepayers money. And Part 6 is where I have a concern. And I really cannot support that we go from 800 to 0, and especially where it's going to be on private land. So I would prefer that the council amends its fees and charges for development applications for public art murals on private property that face public space, subject to a further report, because I believe we need a report on the potential cost factors and everything like that. And as Karen Abey just advised us all, that if it's part of the original DA, no one pays any extra. But there's another side of it that really concerns me. And this is public art that is on a wall that deteriorates. Does anyone know of any public art on a wall that's deteriorated over the last period?
Be on your building.
Thank you very much. And who put that, who put that up there? This council. So what we have to also look at, and this is why I want a further report, is that we need to sort of look at whether, when we do decide to go to 0 fees, if we go down 0 fees, is this council going to be the one rectifying the problem if this artwork deteriorates, even if it's on public land? We can try and force the owner to do so. If the owner says, no, I don't want to do it, we could have an ugly piece of art like we have in Hague Walk right at this point in time. Now, I've actually sent the CEO a video of that particular piece of art in North Hobart, and I assure you it's in atrocious condition. I'm not going to go too far there because Mr Young's aware of it, Mr Noy's aware of it, and hopefully it's going to get rectified. But they're the concerns I have. So, Lord Mayor, I actually support the notion that we could assist in street art, but I would like to see a further report that looks at aspects of what happens if the artwork deteriorates over a period of time, even if it's on public land, and do we, or do the ratepayers have to bear the cost of the advertising? It's all right, it's all right, it's okay, don't worry. As long as you didn't buy, it's fine, good. Bear the cost of the advertising, because I think point 6 is very concerning to me. The advertising fees used to external costs incurring advertising applications incurred in the Mercury. So if the fee is waived, the council will not have the cost recovery to the applicant. To my point of view, I don't believe any person who puts a DA in should have a cost associated that costs the council. I'd be comfortable with the application fees, but I wouldn't be comfortable with the others. So that's why I believe that this should be a further report come forward. I would hope that the Lord Mayor may give consideration to it that way. I cannot support it in the manner it is at this point in time, because it's actually making a decision to go from 800 to 0. That's what is being said here. And there are too many issues that we need to overcome. And if people don't believe what I'm saying, I'm happy to text them a mural that sits in a main walkway in North Hobart, or if anyone's willing to come and look, have a look at it. It's actually on my building.
Thank you. Alderman Zuko?
That time, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, sit down.
From the CEO, just in relation to that advertising fee.
Well, the two things actually, Deputy Lord Mayor. So look, the way I read that, the motion would only apply to the development application fee that relates to the mural. So that's the $400 fee. I don't think it picks up the advertising fee, which is specifically, which is a specific fee in of itself. So that's not actually mentioned in the motion. And the other part in respect of the upkeep of public art, and I will need to seek, because I know certainly from my experience in other public art frameworks that's actually dealt with by way of the agreement with the artist when a mural is actually applied. I understand there's a situation which we are investigating in respect of your own matter, but in terms of art, public art that's put onto private or public realm, at present there is obligations with respect to the framework, and I'm not sure whether any of the directors have specific knowledge of our framework to clarify that that is the case.
Ms Allen, did you want to add anything?
No, I can't provide clarity on that this evening. Quite often the costs associated with maintenance of a public artwork reside with the owner, but there must be engagement with the creating artist when that work happens.
Thank you. And just before we go on, so Lord Mayor, is that reflected in your motion? Like, is it just in relation to
Development fee.
the development fee? So the advertising fee would stay in place. Okay.
That's what the motion says. I wasn't aware when I drafted the motion that it was two separate fees.
Okay. So it's really the development application.
So through you, Chair.
We'd have to amend it to include the advertising fee as well, if that's.
Well, can I get a point of clarification? I'm very sorry.
Just hold on. Just hold on.
Okay, I'll
could you sit
wait.
down? Could you sit down for a moment, Lord Mayor? Could you just clarify then that, please?
You want to waive both fees? Waive both fees?
No, at the moment, I'm happy to go ahead with the
waiving
development applications fee to zero.
Yep.
Because when I wrote it, I wasn't aware of another fee, which was somewhat surprising, the cost of it, but I guess that's a separate question that I was going to ask about, because it does seem incredibly high as well for all DAs to have 449, but yeah.
Just the application
That's
fee.
right.
Okay. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Chair. So through you to the CEO. What's Launceston do?
No.
Okay.
Sorry. So, look, they do exactly as I explained. So it's a zero fee.
Zero which fee?
The application fee. So the reason the notification fee is generally not exempt is because that's a subsidy. Because that's actually a fee that you have to pay to the Mercury and to that's so. But again, the quantum of that fee certainly is different. And in respect of the artwork, to pick up the earlier question, there's certainly an artist agreement with respect to what happens in terms of then there's no guarantees beyond in terms of the future of the as to how long the art would stay in place.
Okay. So I'm happy with that if the advertising fee, that if the person who wants the mural covers the cost of it. And what about changing it? So if we get street art on walls, which I think is fantastic, I'd like to see more of it, and you want to change it every 6 months or every year, have a new artist come and do something, how does that work? Is that a new application? I mean, should we know that at the start, that it's a temporary piece of art? Through you, Chair.
I think we have an existing framework within Hobart, and again, I can take it on notice because it's not necessarily covered by the motion before you tonight, but we can certainly explain what our current framework is in terms of dealing with artwork once it is erected, and then the maintenance of it moving forward. And again, that's probably a separate matter in respect of the development application, but certainly my experience in other jurisdictions is that it is there's no guarantees beyond a certain time in terms of whether it will stay in place, again, any future murals on that site or future would require another DA. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Well, they were questions. So just look, my contribution's brief. I support a proposal that says the application fee will be, what do you call it? Exempt from these applications will be exempt from the application fee, but they will pay the advertising fee, so the council's not subsidising, and the ratepayer's not subsidising the artwork. I think that's only fair. So I'll support that, a motion that says the application fee be waived, but the advertising fee not be waived.
Thank you. Alderman Zico?
I just need some clarification. I'd just like to know what the actual motion is going to be, and I'm asking that on this basis, that the motion originally reads that the council amend its fees and charges. Now, I know it goes on to development, but fees and charges are something else. So can the Lord Mayor or whoever clarify what the actual motion is going to read before I support or not support it? Because if it's going to be, it's going down the track of being just development application fees, I said what I said before and I'll support it. So please, if the Lord Mayor can clarify.
I'm happy to, clarify it by modifying it to a 0 fee for development application fee.
Which is what it says, I think, in...
No, it says it's fees and charges set to 0 for development applications.
Can we just a sec before you speak? Are we sure that that's okay?
Listen, if you want to put more clarity on it, you can. I mean, the way I read it, that's a development application fee for public art, and then you've got an advertising fee, which is a different fee. So it doesn't actually mention the advertising fee. So.
Does that sound right, Ms. Abbey?
I think it's, yeah. Awesome.
I'm content with the CEO's interpretation.
Yep, it's probably good move, good career move. Councillor Posselt.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I guess there's lots of elements to this, isn't there? And I actually would support it in its more robust form of waiving fees altogether. I understand that we run a program of public art displays on our traffic signal control boxes, and I believe, and I would seek to clarify, that the fee that we pay the artist to do that is in the order of $400 to $500. Is that correct?
Alan?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that comprehensively this evening. So there is a provision for materials and fees, and I think the annual cost of the program is about $27,000, but I couldn't tell you tonight what the payment fee is.
Thank you, Director. My recollection from advertising on our social media is that it's around the $400 mark, and that would be sort of, a low bar if we're spending $27,000 a year on the program. So we're actively spending $27,000 to beautify our streets with art. I understand that only a certain type of street art mural requires planning permission. How many planning applications do we receive that require permission? And can you at all talk to the, through you, Deputy Lord Mayor, can you at all talk to what does or does not require permission?
Ms. Abbey?
Through you, Deputy Lord Mayor, I'd say that we receive one application, if that, per year for an application just for a standalone piece of art like this. Most of the time, these proposals are incorporated into development of a grander scale. So I can't give concrete advice about when exactly planning approval will be required. It depends where the property is, so which planning scheme applies, whether or not there's a heritage overlay, all of those sorts of features. So we'd encourage members of the public to contact our duty planner to get advice before they went ahead and did art.
Thank you, Director. Director's telling us that we have less than one application a year, and all things going well, if we want to enhance the vibrancy of this city, include more street art, more vibrancy, allow people to display things like the platypus in South Hobart, which is one of the most remarkable bits of street art we have in the city, as well as on the private property in Tasma Street, which is an incredible mural. Should we get a 500% or 5 times uptake from where we currently stand, it will cost us $5,000, yet we currently pay $27,000 to decorate traffic signal boxes. We get the artist's labour for free as the council because we're not paying for it, we're just waiving the fees. And it has landowner consent because it has to go through the appropriate approvals, so that if the building is privately owned, it has approval to occur from the owner. So it's not graffiti, it's art. Now, as I said, I'm much more in support of this being a whole sum zero rather than half and half. Because if we want to support street art and we want to support artists and we want to enable people to say, you know what, come over like the Tasma Street House and paint a 2-story mural of an incredible portrait, and I'll pay you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in artist fees to do that. Everyone's winning here, and there's somebody already paying significant money. Why do we need to put an extra $800 or $900 on top of that? And I further think that having a zero-sum fee will actually result in more murals, such as the one that has been raised in this case, actually going through the proper process as required, people will be more inclined to do something and ask for forgiveness if there's an upfront fee and hope they don't get caught. When it's a free process, then why wouldn't you go through the process properly? So I really strongly support staying with both, and I will obviously be supporting it even if it is the half waiver. And just one question further, Deputy Lord Mayor, just as Alderman Zuko raised an issue that was related, but I understand that our graffiti policy is that graffiti is removed within 72 hours of it being identified in a highly prominent location. Can any officers provide advice to what is happening on Tolman's Hill, the giant graffiti on the side of the outlet?
Can anybody take that, or?
Lord Mayor, at the moment, the responsibility for cleaning that graffiti remains that of the developer. There's a period of time, though, which that will then expire, and the responsibility will then transfer effectively to the council to actually clean that. We will require the developer to ensure it's made good prior to that transfer of responsibility.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Two things. I think it's, or three things actually. I think it's a great idea in principle to do something like this, the more art there is around. I have two concerns. I mean, any decision this chamber makes, we've got to know how much it costs. Simple as that. So I'd just like to know if it's only a few $100 or a few thousand, no problem. But it is a bit unknown. If it's going to tie up council officers' time, it's going to cost thousands of dollars, and we're consistently hearing that we're understaffed and we just can't get the work done. I mean, we're dumping onto officers potentially a lot of work here. Now, the quantum's probably unknown, and perhaps a way of putting a ceiling on that might be capping it at a certain amount. And that may, because the minute you say something's free, you wait. People come out of the woodwork, and it's got potential to really get off the rails there. So as part of any decision making, we've got to know how much it costs, or where we're going to cap that. That will answer that question at a certain amount of money. And I think a report that can flesh this out a little bit better, I think it's a prudent thing for us to do before we make any further decision on it.
Moving that as an amendment, Councillor Kelly, or?
Well, it's just Alderman Zuko's report.
I didn't.
You didn't put one forward?
Move it as an amendment.
You could have that as a foreshadowed motion if you liked, Alderman Zuko. Did you want a report? No, you're happy with it, knowing that it's the 400.
May I clarify?
Yeah.
Yes,
sure. My understanding is the Lord Mayor has now changed it to the development application, that they pay a development application fee.
Okay, so you're happy with that?
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm happy with that. So.
Yeah, I would like to have an amendment that we know, perhaps, or putting a cap on what it's actually going to be costing us in officer level time or any other associated costs before we open the floodgates.
Review it in 12 months.
We could do that, yeah.
Board Mayor can accept that.
I'd be happy to say that it's reviewed in 12 months. With that, I still am concerned that this.
12 months?
Well, I still am concerned. I'd be keen to hear if there's any other commentary on that. That if we do open the free, put the free sign up, it gets out of control. I just don't want to be dumping onto officers further work, which they keep consistently saying to me, quite rightly too, that they don't have the time and resources to do it. So if we want to do that, that's fine. Or could I put a question through you, Deputy, to the Creative City Director? Is it, do you envisage this being a potential drain on resources to be able to facilitate this type of suggestion?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I suspect if both fees were waived, then people might be a little bit more relaxed about making applications that were more frequent, but if the advertising fee is still there, then I think only serious applicants would make those applications. Given that I've indicated that there's likely only one or maybe two per year standalone applications, I think that's we can accommodate that work within the resources that we have.
Thank you. Well, in light of that, I'd be happy to go for the 12-month review and
So, Lord Mayor, are you happy to accept that to review in 12 months?
I think that just ends up being extra work itself.
But
So I'd suggest it's an amendment.
Can we not have discussions across the table, but...
Yeah, sorry, through you. I won't accept that into the motion, but I'm happy, you're welcome to move it as an amendment.
So you want a further report in a report on its progress in 12 months?
Yes.
All right, do we have somebody seconding that? Thank you, Alderman Bloomfield. All right, is there any discussion on that amendment that we have? Alderman Bloomfield?
One of the curiosities I have with this is that we're very eager to reduce fees, but the council has a very robust grant system, and I haven't investigated myself personally, but I am curious.
Can you just talk to the amendment, please?
Well, I'm basically saying there are other possibilities that we should be exploring, hence the review I think is quite important, because the grant system we have could also have been quite happily implemented as well. Which would look at the different elements that Councillor Kelly is looking at, the alternatives. It doesn't shut the door on the fact that we shouldn't just make it a stop the fees, zero, it's done. It allows us to say, well, was that the best solution? I think there's multiple solutions here, and I believe that this would actually keep the door open to that.
Okay. Further discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, thank you very much. Look, I initially thought it wasn't really a good idea, the 12-month review. But I think we did a similar thing down at Salamanca recently when we were talking about the music, and we'd review it in 12 months. And if we are really quite concerned about the fact that it may, cost our council staff more time, maybe in 12 months they'll go, well, look, like as the advice is there, it really didn't cost us that much time at all. And I think, as has been already pointed out, we do know the quantum. It says there at point 4, if the application fee is waived, this is unlikely to have a significant impact given that the number of applications received for signs of this nature are quite rare. But I'm happy to support the 12-month review if it gets this over the line. Thanks, Lord Mayor.
Further discussion on the amendment?
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I think we need to be very careful about we need to obviously understand through processes where we're spending our money, how we're spending our money, capital works, operational works, and expenditure. I think that we just need to be a bit careful about putting reviews on everything. Recently, we decided to go for an external review for a piece of data, great piece of data that officers have put together, and I can tell you that review it cost more than $20,000, and we didn't have really qualified advice on what the cost of that was going to be when we endorsed it. Now, I just think that at the moment, we're not going the whole hog by the sounds of it. We're going to keep the $400 advertising fee as part of the motion as it currently stands. So it's not free. It's not going to open the floodgates, as people say. And we have the director telling us that there is 1 to 2 applications a year. Why? I'm just at a bit of a loss as to why we don't take the director's word and extrapolate that they still have to pay $450, and even if it goes up by tenfold, it's going to cost the council, less than $5,000. So by putting this in place, someone will have to have a marker in their diary, someone will have to go back through all the years planning applications, produce a report, bring it to council where we'll all discuss it around the table, decide whether or not we want to do this or make it better or worse. And in this whole time, we've spent more than $5,000 in everybody's time. So I can't support the amendment, and I do think that we need to be more careful with how we apply this level of scrutiny in the financial implications.
Councillor Harvey.
Deputy, a report back in 12 months' time that says there have been 4 applications for this is all we really need. Or there's been 200 applications for this is all we really need. And maybe the addresses, so I can go and have a look at the murals. Sorry, through you, Chair. I don't think it's going to be very onerous that we're going to need to have several officers spending a fortnight writing us a report about this. All I'm interested in is in 12 months, how successful is this? Has it encouraged more people to put murals up? And if it has, then fantastic. And then we know where we go next. And it might be that we drop the other fee as well if no one's applying. So I'm happy to have a report, you know, or it doesn't have to be a review, it just needs to be a report that comes back to us in 12 months' time so we get the data, which would be pretty simple.
Yeah, look, I don't know what's been in the water today, but Councillor Harvey and I seem to be on the same page.
They've changed
they changed the water bottle, is that it?
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, a review doesn't mean to say it's going to be something that's going to take officers $5,000 to do. And at the end of the day, we are the elected members here, and I'm not being detrimental to anybody else. We are the ones that represent our community, each and every one of us. We have a right to ensure that we are kept with the information to ensure that the decisions we're making are the right decisions. Now, as Councillor Harvey said, if it means that that in 12 months' time we get a report to say, well, we've gone from 1 to 50, well, that means it's working. And if we get a report back that says we've gone from 1 to 1, well, and it stayed at 1, well, really, you know, we've sat here tonight debating this for the last 40 minutes for no particular reason. So I'm sorry, look, you know, as I said from the start, I support it in principle. The Lord Mayor has heard a number of us raise concerns. She's amended it. I think this amendment will just put the nail on the coffin of it all, so in 12 months' time we can all see whether it's good, bad or indifferent.
Put the amendment. Those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against?
No.
Show of hands. Those in favour?
Zuko, Dutta, Kelly, Bloomfield, Lohberger, Elliott, Sherlock, Harvey and the Deputy Lord Mayor.
Those against?
Welch, hang on. Lord Mayor, that's it.
So the amendment's carried. Lord Mayor?
Oh,
is there anything else or any further discussion? Councillor Elliott.
Yes, thank you. So from my perspective, of course, I'd like to see more public art, but I'd also like to see more homes. So I think when I'm someone that's a bit of a fickler for consistent principles, so that does trouble me that we are happy to waive fees for art, but not for homes. We need more of those. I'm more comfortable now that it's not, the advertising fee isn't being waived, because I think, again, love public art, but I think it's unjust that ratepayers would pick up the tab for that. I would definitely support fees being minimised though, and I think we've kind of got that to that position, because I also agree with the sentiment that when things are free, you're much more likely to have an uptake, and I wouldn't want to put undue or unexpected pressure on the planning team, especially at the cost of slowing down housing approvals. I think we could do more to promote the public art that is exempt from a planning application that doesn't need to come to us. So I'd actually like to move an amendment if we can have a communication strategy around clarifying for the community what public art does and does not need a planning application, so that we can encourage more public art that is exempt from a planning application.
What's your
The amendment is that officers prepare and execute a communication strategy that makes clear what public art needs, what murals need a planning. Sorry, I was distracted by you, Deputy Lord Mayor, laughing.
Sorry, I'm distracted by the lack of simplicity of your amendment. Okay.
Right, it's on video, so I think we'll cope. The amendment is that the officers prepare and execute a communication strategy that clarifies for the community when a planning permit for public murals is required or not. Is that better, Lord Mayor? Deputy Lord Mayor? Thank you.
Sorry, can we just get a second?
Could we hear that again, please?
I'd like it in writing. It's too complex verbally.
Communication strategy around when...
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
Oh, no, sorry.
Point of order.
Sorry, I was just waiting to hear
Fine.
what Councillor Elliott was
Just
saying.
the interruption by Councillor Basalt. It's not up to Councillor Basalt to determine whether or not you want it in writing. It's up to the chair.
I don't think that's a point of order, but thank you.
I have accepted it in. I'm fairly clear.
I understand that I'm the seconder, and the rules are that seconder requires approval. And I think for wordy amendments, the practice has been that they are in writing.
We might just hear, if Councillor Elliott, if you're okay with this, we'll hear from Mr Young, just in relation to what he's captured, because I certainly couldn't type as quickly as you'd spoken.
Look, thank you, Deputy Lord Member. My shorthand's not what it was, but I've loosely captured this as that it is an amendment for a comms plan to be developed around the fees and DA application process for public art with regard to what is exempt versus what is not exempt for fees under the planning scheme. Is that correct? In a nutshell, that's what you've asked?
Clarity to the community of what public artwork murals are exempt.
Yes,
that's to clarify the exempt ones.
You're okay with that, Lord Mayor? The seconder?
I think that's fine, thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm glad that we got to that point. Is there any further, is there any comment or discussion about this amendment? No. All right, it's been accepted in. Yeah, so that's fine. Is there any further discussion? No. Having such fun up here. Okay. All right, so
I don't think I need
Lord Mayor, you don't want to summarise?
Very quick. Well, it has gone on for a bit longer than expected, so I won't take too long. But yeah, I think we've got clarity on a motion now that's got a few elements that people have got things that they'd like to see in it, and I hope that we can use this opportunity to do communications both about the exempt murals that don't require a planning permit and this opportunity, and definitely get some more street art on particularly private property, because it is a good option for us to expand the public art by encouraging private property owners to commission artists to do this work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Motion's carried unanimously.
Oh.
Moving on now to responses to questions without notice.
Move that they be received and noted.
So, seconder for that, Councillor Lohberger. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against say no. Carried unanimously. Item 19 is questions without notice. I think, Councillor Dutta was up first, and our rules do say you actually have to stand. So I'll.
I have two questions, Lord Mayor, through you to the director or the appropriate, or the CEO or to the director. Section 28(2) of the Local Government Act states the councillors of a council collectively have the following functions. And 2B states to determine and monitor the application of policies, plans and programs. And B3 states the fair and equitable treatment of employees of the council. My question is, can the CEO provide clarification and advice if this statement from the Act indicates that the councillors as a group have the responsibility to establish and oversee the implementation of policies, plans and programs related to ensuring fair and equitable treatment for employees of the council? Does this include elected members getting involved in making decisions about how employees are treated, ensuring that policies are followed, and monitoring the effectiveness of these policies? And I will send the question to the CEO later. question 2.
Oh, let's see whether he wants to answer it now or take it on notice.
I think there are elements that I would like to refer to the Act to ensure that I'm 100% correct. So I'd rather take that on notice and respond with the ability to refer to the Act.
Thank you. Thank you. Question 2. Can the CEO advise if the council or city has a redevelopment policy for employees? I'm sorry, redeployment policies for employees. A of that question, if yes, does the policy outline procedures, programs as to how decisions are made, any relevant training and development opportunities available for transferring employees within the organization? And part B of question 2, are there any appeal processes under the principles of natural justice accorded to employees if they disagree with a redeployment decision or believe they have been unfairly treated during the process?
Further questions? Councillor Posselt was up next.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And it just prompted me, Councillor Dutton's line of questioning, just prompted me to ask for an update on the issues raised with regard to pre-employment screening about 6 months ago and the practice for physical checks and various other pre-employment screening policy for a response to be provided, as that has not been provided at this stage.
Sorry, Alderman Bloomfield's next.
Okay, I have a supplementary question to 18.5. It frustrates and saddens me that I have to actually ask these questions because I do feel that they are the premise of the Director of Local Government, not the Hobart City Council Chamber. Because the Local Government Act specifies that we must, as elected members, report donations over $50 within 14 days, and we must include the name if known. This is designed to create transparency so we can identify lobby groups.
Alderman Bloomfield,
Yes.
As a question you need to get just straight to the question without too much commentary.
So I'd like to know how the public can reasonably know when Councillor Elliott has a pecuniary interest established with her GoFundMe page due to the anonymous or first name only identification of donations. Has the Director of Local Government been informed of the discrepancy of undeclared donations? On the 9th of December 2023, a gentleman that has been named as Ted Middleton supplied a donation of $2,000. That is not, that I can tell, it's been declared.
This is debate.
Yeah, I think just go straight to the question about...
I want to know why has that not been declared? I have nearly 2 pages of donations on that GoFundMe over $50 that are not identified. Why not? I want to know who is Craig declaring a donation of $1,000 in November 2023. I want to know who is Peter declared on the register for $500 on January 2024, and who is PT declared on the register for $500 on November 2023. There is also a tweet video that was made on the 7th of February where Councillor Elliott had declared...
Question, please, Alderman Bloomfield.
That tweet is misleading the public. It declares that she has declared all donations.
This is not a question, this is actual debate.
No, I think
and I'd like you to rule on it, please.
I have, and I've asked Alderman Bloomfield.
Can you ask the Alderman to get to the question and not debate?
There have been questions throughout, but I think...
I asked the question, does that tweet video form evidence of misleading the public, given that she stated that she had declared all her donations, but it appears that is not the case?
Okay, there are a lot of very complex questions, Alderman
I
Bloomfield,
have
so they'll be in
to
writing.
send to you, it's fine.
Okay, and they may or may not be able to be answered by the CEO. Yeah, but
that's right. We'll take it on notice and have to work through those.
Can I answer the questions? Can I answer the questions now? If you want to pass them over, I'll answer them.
I don't believe that's the process here, is it?
I'm more than happy to answer it.
Director of Councillor Elliott.
You can ask questions of another elected member, so if you can just ask questions to me and I can answer them.
So Alderman Bloomfield's directed them to the CEO.
I'm happy to answer them, I just can't remember them all.
Okay. What was that, sir?
Can I have a go? Thank you. My questions are short and sweet. Can officers advise if the City of Hobart has a daytime thermal heat map of the city and suburbs? If not, should such a map be produced for inclusion in the climate strategy? Got that? You won't have to listen to the replay for that one.
You'll send that in.
They've been sent.
Oh,
Do you want to answer it now, or?
would you like to answer
Yeah,
it?
through you, Lord Mayor. We'll have to take that on notice, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second one, can officers please advise what the bush care program budget has been over the last 5 years? So each of those years, last 5 years. Got that in your head?
Director Reynolds, can you answer that now? Or?
I can, Lord Mayor, and through you. So for the 23-24 financial year, and I'll round this to thousands of dollars to make it a bit simpler, it was $282,000. For the financial year 22-23, it was $264,000.
What was it? 264?
For the financial year 21-22, it was $257,000. For the financial year 2021, it was $246,000. And for the 19-20 financial year, it was $232,000.
Thank you for those, and I think I win the questions.
I just had one question, much to everyone's relief, I'm sure. I'm just wanting to ask about the e-scooter licence. Last week we announced a sole operator had been selected, and I'm just wondering why the licence didn't come before us tonight.
CEO, I think that was a decision of the council, but I'll get the CEO to clarify.
Yeah, I confirm that. So the council made a decision with respect to the licence, and then delegated to me to enact that. I can certainly stand here and say that the conditions that were approved by the council formed part of the licence. So that was the reason why it didn't actually come back to the council.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sherlock.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to ask if the CEO can provide a breakdown of how much council money or public money has been spent on legal issues relating to each elected member for the last term in the exact time frame that has been answered at 18.4. So it was a year and 3 months. So that would be a year and 3 months of the last term, which would be November 2018 to February 2020.
Any?
So the last term.
We can certainly get those figures.
Yep. Thank you very much.
I wasn't going to ask a question, but now I am going to ask a question. Considering that there's been a question regarding the last 13 months, can we actually have the names of those elected members as well?
So that one we'll have to take on notice because there are legal issues that we need to consider in respect of whether we can.
Legal issues.
Subject to legal, absolutely.
No problem.
Any further questions, Deputy Lord Mayor?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, today I attended a jobs hub hosted by Glenorchy City Council at KGV. This had a multitude of employers who were in touch.
Deputy Lord Mayor, can I just ask that you just go straight to the question?
With thousands of students, members of the community, importantly the migrant community. What does the council undertake to improve employment opportunities for students and others of this municipality, and to expose them to myriad employment opportunities? And what opportunities are there provided for members of the community from English as additional language backgrounds?
Director Allen, did you want to talk at all about our jobs for migrants initiatives?
I would prefer to take that question on notice, thank you.
Any further questions? Sorry to do this, but I have two questions, but I've been dying to ask them. I have been dying to ask them for a couple of months, so I'm going to put them... so the first one is, can officers seek advice from State Roads about when they plan to fix potholes and improve the surface on Macquarie Street between Mole Street and Argyle Street? That's the first question. And can officers advise if there's any Ausroads or other standard for appropriate maintenance and resheeting schedules for roads with this number of traffic movements per day, referring again to Macquarie Street?
Sorry,
Mr.
Lord Mayor. The answer to the first question is yes, and I'll take the second question on notice.
Great. Lovely. Okay, thanks for all those questions. So item 20 is just receiving and noting the questions taken on notice during debate. Moved by Councillor Posselt, seconded by Councillor Lohberger. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Now I'd like a motion to move to the closed from Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Posselt.
Supplementary.
Oh, sorry, we've got a supplementary, yeah. So supplementary is item 22, moved by, need a move for item 22, Councillor Sherlock, second by Councillor Dutta. Would that be received and noted? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say no. Carried unanimously. Now I need a motion to move into the closed portion of the meeting. Moved by Councillor Posselt, seconded by Councillor Lohberger. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against say